Are you confused about functions and components? First, we'll set up the custom death animations. Next, we'll create the character logic and functions. Finally, we'll put the functions into a component and have the AI use it. Well, let's not waste time. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so to start out with, we're going to have to grab some assets off the Mixamo site. The first asset we're going to grab is this XBot, and we can just download it in its default T-pose. The next assets we're going to grab are two animations. We're going to grab the mutant dying animation, and that's how it looks. And then finally, we're going to grab the getting up animation, which is, you could just type in the search getting up, click and set that, and that's what that animation looks like. Now, when you're downloading the two animations, you just click the download button, and we're going to do it without the skin. Now, for me, I'm going to download these to my desktop, and then I'm going to pull it from there. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the project. Okay, now that we're inside of our project, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Edit tab, go to Editor Preferences, and in Editor Preferences, right here for default location, we're going to change that to the main window because we'll be opening up several tabs in this project. Save. Next, we're going to go ahead and go to the content drawer, third person folder, or I'm sorry, back to the content folder. First, we're going to add our Mixamo folder, make a new folder. Call it Mixamo. Within that folder, we're going to make another folder, and we're going to call it Animations. Now, while we're here in this folder, inside the Mixamo folder, we're going to import our XBot, and we can, for me, I've got it on my desktop right here. So just select the XBot and open, and we can select import all. Do a Control Shift S to save, and we can close this, and we can also close this message box. Now, in our animation drawer, we're going to go into it, and we're going to also select the import button, and we're going to grab our two animations. So we're going to hold down the control button, do a left click and get the getting up and the dying FBX files, and hit open. For the skeleton, we're going to select the XBot we just downloaded. We're going to import all because we have more than one file. Do a Control Shift S to save. Now, for these animations, we're going to convert them into the default mannequin one by right-clicking and then clicking the retarget animations. We're going to select the targeted skeleton. In here, just type in simple, and we can grab the mannequin. I'm going to grab the Quinn mannequin. Next, we're going to left-click and then hold Control and left-click again to highlight both of these animations. And then we're going to export the animation. We're going to give it a prefix so that way we can keep track of it. So we're going to call it QNY underscore. And that'll be in front of the animation when we download it. Next, we're going to open the Mixamo right here and select that animation folder we just created and click Export. Yes, and click Export. Again, if you see the stars right here, we're just going to do a Control Shift S, and that will show that we've saved these two files. We can close this extra window. Okay, now that we're here, what we're going to do is we're going to create our death animation, or it's going to be actually more of a death and recovery animation. We're going to go into the project here, and what we're going to do is we're going to grab one of these right here, and I'm just going to select the E key, and I'm just going to rotate it slightly this way. And what we're going to do is we're going to open this back up, and we're going to right click, and we're going to create an animation. So we're going to use the cinematics. We're going to use the level sequencer. We can just call it ls underscore death. Control Shift S to save. Now, we're going to need to open this up. Double click it. And right here, while this is highlighted, we're going to click Add. we're going to add an actor to the sequence. We're going to add this animation that we just used. Give it a second. Great. Now that we're here, we don't need this control rig set up right here. That's all these little lines here. We're just going to right click and select delete to delete that. Now, while we're here, we're going to hold down control and scroll our mouse wheel back just to get a little bit more space on this graph here. We're going to drag this red marker here out because we're going to put two animations back to back. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to click the animation plus button. We're going to type in QNY, and that's going to help us to locate our two animations. So we're going to get the first one we're going to get is going to be the dying. And because we want to see the dying one first, and then after they die, then we're going to add the other animation. So click the animation button again, type in QNY, and then we're going to do the getting up one. Now we're going to take this one and we're going to left click and drag it right behind that, and then set the cursor right here to where it ends the animation. To view this, we're just going to go ahead and hit the play button. We see our character falls out, and then he gets right back up. Okay, great. Now, what we're going to need to do is we're going to save this animation. And the way we do that is we right-click on the getting up animation thing here, and we're going to do a bake animation sequence. Left-click. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call it QNY_death. And we're going to save it into our Mixamo folder in the animations, so we can keep all our animations localized. Click OK. And then make sure to export the animation. Okay, great. That should be done. So if we look here, we can close this. We can do a Control-Shift-S because we want to save our work. And we've got our QNY death. But now we don't really need this anymore, so you can actually delete the main actor here. Hit yes to delete, and then we can also delete the cinematic because we won't be using this again. Hit delete. Okay, great. Now this QNY on death, we're going to need to turn it into a montage, and that's simple. Just right click, and then go to create anim montage. Hit left click. You can just hit the enter button so we can just keep it as the same name. Control-Shift-S again. Okay, great. Let's go back to our content folder. Go to our third person. Go to blueprint folder. And then right here, we're going to need to duplicate this 2 times. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a while it's highlighted, Control D. And we can hit enter. And then we can do Control D again and hit enter. And then for the second one here, we're just going to right click, and then we can go ahead and we can rename it. You could also use F2 as well. But we're going to call this blueprint BP_AI and then enter. Now, while we're here, we're going to do a Control-Shift-S just to save our work. Now, next, we're going to need to open up the third person. And we're going to find some room at the bottom of the graph right here. Hey, sorry for the pause break, but for this next part, we're going to build our death, run, and walk logic within the event graph, and then convert those into functions. And this is what it'll look like. All right, keep it up, moving on. Okay, let's start by creating our 2 keyed events that we're going to use. We can move this down. We can right click. We're going to use the 1 key for the death. Select 1 key and the key there. And while we're here, we can just go ahead and do for the speed animation as well, the walk and run speed. So we're going to do a left shift, and that'll be the other one that we're going to make the code for. Okay, we're going to right click, and we're going to look for a node called play anim montage. Now, we're going to use the play and a montage because this can be used within functions and in components instead of using the play montage. And the reason for that is because delays and play, anything that has a delay or a time interpolation, such as anim notifies, will not work within that. So that's why we're using this. All right, continuing on. We're going to connect this up right here. And we want to use the anim montage that we made earlier, which is the QNY death montage. Next, we're going to want to do a print string. And for this print string, this is going to let us know that the character has died. So a character has died. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change the color to red for death. And then we're going to make sure this print string stays up for 5 seconds. So 5 and enter. Next, we're going to need to grab the movement component from our character. And we're going to put disable movement. And because we don't want the character to move while it's performing the death animation. We don't want to be able to move that. Next, we're going to do a control. Here we go. We're going to do a hold down the D button and a left click. And that will give us the delay node. For this delay node, we're going to use 7 because that's how long that these two animations will take to play. Next, we're going to do a double click right here. And we're going to create this little reroute node here. And we're going to drag off of this. And we're going to set movement mode to walking. Because once the animation finishes, we want our character to be able to walk again. Like so. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and start our walk and run logic. We can do a compile and save, just so we can save everything that we have up here. So, for the walk-in mode, we're going to need the character movement again. We're going to drag off of here, and we're going to do a set max walk. If I can spell it, there we go, set max walk speed. Okay, fantastic. Okay, we can leave that like that. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to select this again by highlighting it. And then we're going to hover our mouse down here, and it'll do a Control D. And that's going to duplicate it. Now, for when we press this, we're going to want it to run, and we're going to want it to run fast because we're doing super speed. 1,200 should be good. And then for the walk, we want it to walk. We're going to do 300. Compile and save. Okay, now with this animation, we're going to actually add a emitter. So we're going to do attach emitter, and we're gonna have a super speed effect. Okay, so we're gonna highlight this, move this over. We're gonna connect this to here, and the emitter type we're going to use is going to be in the default starter content, and we're just going to use the sparks. For the rotation, we're going to change this value to 90. All right, and then we're gonna change the scale to 2 all the way around, just to double the size of it. Next, we're going to attach it to a certain point. Now, the component we're going to attach this emitter to will be a character mesh. So we're going to grab, drag, and drop it, connect it up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do something called center underscore of mass, all in lower caps with underscores. We're going to compile and save. And I think I'm going to show you real quick why I've done this. So this is the mesh. This is the mesh of the character. So we're going to grab this mesh right here. We're going to highlight it. Look at the details panel. We're going to go to where the skeletal mesh asset is, and then we're going to browse to it for a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to just double click on it. And then right here, we're going to go to the skeletal mesh. And then, so I can show you where it's at, because I think this is important. We're just going to type center. There we go, center of mass. So we're going to highlight that, close that. And now you see the center of mass. That's where this is located, right here. That's where we're attaching our emitter to. Now I did this little side step here just to show you this so you know where I grabbed the location from. Okay, so we can go ahead and we can close these out. We can go back to our content drawer, and we're gonna go back to the third person, back to blueprints, and we're gonna stay in this, pretty much in this folder. Okay, next we're gonna move this down so we can complete our run and walk logic. Now we need to create the emitter, so we're gonna drag off of here. We're gonna need to create a variable for it. We're going to promote it to a variable. We're just gonna call it spark and enter. Okay, go down here, move this here, and then what we want to do is, okay, well, we probably want to connect up the release, because once we release the shift key, we want to go back to our walk mode. And what we're going to need to do here is we're going to need something called an isValid node. Okay. And then what we're also going to need is we're going to need to create a destroy component. Because once we let go of the shift button, or once we stop running and we go to our walk mode, we want to make sure that we destroy the component. But we want to do it down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect these. And we're going to set this to isValid, because we only want this to work when it's valid. And we're going to need that variable. So this variable here, we're just going to grab it from right here. We're going to get the spark. And what we're going to do is we're going to set that there. And we're going to double click this. And we're going to do the same thing like we did before. We're going to drag and drop and connect that. Do a compile and save. Okay, while we're here, let's just go ahead and do a quick test. Hit the play button. Hit 1. As you can see in the upper corner, we got character has died. We're going to hold down, and then we're going to do our run. Run's working, and we've got the sparks. Escape out of that. Back to our event graph. Yep, me again. I had to break. Okay, so for this next part, we're going to actually go ahead and create the functions within the character, transfer those functions into a component, and then use that component for our AI character. And it's going to look a little bit like this. All right, well, back to the video. Okay, so we're going to go right here over to our functions tab. We're going to add a plus sign. And we're going to call this fdeath for our function. And then what we want to do is we're going to compile and save. We're going to go to the event graph. Okay, so we need to grab our death. We're going to grab our death logic right here. Okay, so we're going to grab everything except for anything on this delay and set mode. Okay, so what we're going to grab is all this right here. But remember, inside of functions, delays don't work. So they only work outside of functions. So we're going to select all that. We're going to do a Control C. We're going to go to our death event, or death function rather, and we're going to do a Control V. Okay. And we're going to line our code up, connect the anim montage. And then what we're going to need to do is, because we're going to use this function and other things, we're going to need to take this right here, and we're going to drag this over to the function here, and it's going to create an input. Now this is the character movement, so we're going to name this char move and enter. And the reason we're doing that is because this variable is only particular to this character. So if we take our, when we put this function inside of a component, you're going to need to use the actual function. You're going to need to use the variables from that character. And this will allow us to plug in from the outside. Okay, so let's neaten this up. Let's just go ahead and move this wire down a little bit. I'm going to just neaten it up. And then right here, we're going to need to activate this with whatever character we're using. So we're going to drag and drop off of here and connect that up as well. Now, it says target, but we're going to highlight that, and we're going to call this char self. That way we know to connect our self to this character on the outside of this function. Next, we're going to hit compile and save. Go back to the event graph. Now we got two more functions to make. So we're going to start with the run. So we're going to do f speed run. Not sped, speed. There we go. Speed run. Okay. Send this out. Go back to our event graph, and we're going to copy the same thing. We're going to copy all this code right here. So we need all of this right here. Control C. Go to the speed run. Control V. And then we can go ahead and hook it up. Now, we're going to need to add these inputs as well. So we got the movement here. So remember, we want to set that here. Highlight this. And we're going to call this our char move, which is short for character move, obviously. Enter. And we can, of course, we can delete this. And then what we want to do is we're going to drag off of here. And we're going to call this, by highlighting this, our char mesh. And we can delete that out as well. Compile and save. Now, while we're in this character, something to note, anytime you make a variable or function, this particular one, whenever you put it into, when you make a new function inside of a new thing besides this particular actor, you're going to have to actually re-enable this, and I'm going to show you that as we get to that part. All right. Next, for the final one, we're going to need to do a f speed walk. Do a compile and save. Go back to our event graph. All right. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead. We're going to copy this code right here. We can take all this, highlight it, Control C. And then we're going to go into our F speed walk, go over here, and paste. Move that down a little bit. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put our character move as an input. And then we're going to highlight this, char move. This will make more sense as we go further along. Enter. And then we're going to close this as well. Okay, so we're going to need to grab our spark here. Now, okay, so here, just to show you, so now you see why I did this little connector here, because we can just go ahead, delete this, and we're going to take that off of here, drag here, highlight it, and we're going to call this our spark. So now we've got an input for our spark. And then we want to make sure we connect this up. And actually, while we're here, make sure we connect that up there. And make sure we do a compile and save. Okay, so right here, we're getting a little error because this is not compatible with this input. We're going to go cascade, particle component, and we're going to do an object reference. compile, and save. Now these are compatible, so you should have no errors. Okay, so we're going to go, now that we have our functions here, and it's inside this third person character, we're going to go to our content folder and we're going to create our component actor. Okay, all we have to do is right click, and we're going to go to Blueprint class, and we're going to get our actor component. Now we're going to name this character ability component. Control Shift S to save, and we're going to go ahead and double click to open that up. Now we don't really need anything in here, but what we do need is we're going to need to make a function, and we're going to leave this blank because we're going to copy and paste from the other blueprint. So we go back to our third person. Okay, and then all we're going to do is we're going to left click and we're going to highlight it. We're going to copy each function individually. So we're going to do a Control C, and we're going to go back to our character component, and we're going to do a left click right here and do a Control V, and then just hit enter. And then now we have our function within this component. We're going to keep doing that for the rest of them. So let's go ahead and left click the run, do a Control C, back to the component. Okay, it doesn't matter. You can highlight this one as well. It doesn't matter. Just highlight one of them, Control V, and enter until we get all of them. We're going to get this one as well. Control C, back to the character component, and we're going to do a Control V and enter. Now, with our run, let's see, make sure we got everything. Okay, so with our run, we're going to need, like I said before, we're going to need to actually get the Spark component. We're going to right click and we're going to create this variable. So now you see it populated here. Now the variable's within this component, so it can be used by whatever actor who has this component. Okay, that should cover the character component. Now we need to move on to our content drawer, and we're going to open up our BP AI, and we're going to set this up. So we're going to have to fix a couple things here. First, we don't need any of the logic in here. We're going to go ahead and delete all that logic. We're also going to get rid of, we're going to do a left click, and we're going to get rid of the camera boom. Hold on, let's see. Control, left click, and we're going to grab the camera boom and the follow camera and just delete those because we won't need those as well. Still got little remnants here. Just go ahead and delete that. We're going to do a compile and save. And now we're going to need to add this character component we just created. So we're going to just go ahead and click the add. And we're going to type in character ability component. And enter. Compile, save. Now, we're going to need to make a couple events. So I'm going to make the events first. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to do custom events. We're going to do a custom. We're going to add a custom event. Okay. And I'm just going to, basically, I'm going to duplicate this a couple times. So that one's going to be our death one. This one's going to be our walk, or probably our run one. And then this one, we're going to make sure it's highlighted, Control D again. And that will be probably our walk. Now we're going to have to make another one, but let's go ahead and start with the logic that we're going to use from our character component. But let's go ahead and name these. So let's highlight the first one. We're going to call this AI Death. We're going to call this one AI Run. And then finally, we're going to do an AI Walk. Well, while we're here, we can go ahead and create the next one. So we're going to need, okay, so we're going to create another custom event. And we're going to call this AI roam. And we're going to make sure this particular event, because this is going to tell our AI where to go, we're going to go ahead and do a begin play. And we're going to activate this AI roam as soon as this blueprint is activated. So whenever the game starts. So we're going to do AI roam right here. That's all this is. This event here is this one right here. That's just telling this to start it right away. That's all that is. Okay. Now we're going to do a compile and save. And here we're going to start with grabbing the component, dragging it onto the graph. Move this here. We're going to drag off of here, and we're going to get fdef. Get our fdef logic. We're going to connect that up. And you see here we got the char move and the char self, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab the character movement, and we're going to drag and drop and put it right here. And then right here, we're going to drag off of here, and we're just going to type in the word self. And we're going to get a reference to our self. And then, okay, so next we're going to do the run logic. And we're going to do the run and walk logic. We're going to use the character component for both of these. So we're going to drag off of here, and we're going to do the F run. Let's type in run. Oh, sorry, F speed run. That's where I messed up. Okay. You can hook that up. And then we're going to drag off of here. And then we're going to do F speed walk right here. Now, there was something I did forget, and I forgot to put the output for the spark, because it's going to have to connect to here for our component here. So we're going to go back into the character components. And in the character component, under the F run speed, we're going to select this right here, and we're going to create an output. Okay, drag the output over here, and we're going to connect it up. And we're going to drag off the spark here, and we're going to connect it here until you have that green check mark. And we're going to name this to spark for the output. And then enter. And we don't need this new parameter, so we can go ahead and delete that. We're going to do a compile and save. Now that we've updated the character component, we can go back to our AI. And then look, we have the spark now. And we're going to take that spark and we're going to connect it right to here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to also have to add these as well. So we're going to need the character movement component. Drag and drop. Got the character movement connected. And then we're going to need the character mesh. Move this down a little bit. And we're going to drag and drop it right here. And now we've got the mesh. We need to do a character move component for this as well. Character move right here. Do a compile and save. Okay, and that should cover that. So now we need to build our roam logic. We're going to grab all this and just move it down. And what we're going to do, we're going to need to do an AI move to. So AI move to. We're going to create the logic for this real quick. We're going to do the pawn. It's going to be self. And then for the target destination, we're going to do reachable. So we want to get the random reachable point. For the actor, or for the origin, we're going to do actor location. Like so. And for the radius it can move, we're just going to set this to 2000. That should cover most of the level. Okay, and then we're going to we're going to hold down the D button, do a left click, and we're going to do a delay because we want this logic to run for 7 seconds, like so. Okay, neaten up our code a little bit. And we're going to move this to the side for a second just so we can grab all this code right here. We're going to do we're going to highlight it, move over here, and do a Control D. Move this up here, like so. Now, we're going to need to hook this up to the AI walk because we're going to have our character walk first. So we're going to do AI walk, and that'll activate our walk logic. Connect this up. Okay, now we're going to do AI run. So we're going to right click, do AI run. Connect this up. Connect that up. Neaten up the code a little bit. And then we got to make sure we connect our AI roam. Now, after the AI does all this, we can do a compile save. We want it to do an AI death. And then what we're going to do, we're going to add another delay here. So hold down D and hit the left click, connect it up. And like I said, the animation is like 7 seconds long. So we're going to do 7 seconds. Okay, so then what we're going to need to do is once we have the character, we're going to take the character movement and we're going to set movement mode back to walking. Compile and save. Okay, that should cover the code for that. Now let's go back into our third person map. And then what we're going to need here is we're going to need 2 things. We're going to need the AI. So we're going to grab the AI character. We're going to put him over here or right there. And then we're going to need to go to the add button here. And we're going to need to type in NAV. And we're going to need a nav mesh bound volume. We're going to go ahead and drag that in here and we're going to set it. And then for this mesh volume, let's see, we can location, let's hit W, get it kind of in the middle. We're going to back out by hitting the E key. And we're going to go ahead and change these values here. So we're going to do 15 by 15 by 5. And we're going to hit the P button. Okay, sorry. Hit the P button here. Okay, so we want to make it a little bit bigger as far as the scale. So let's go ahead and make sure we go back to our nav mesh, type in NAV here. We're going to highlight the nav mesh. And we're going to change it to 17. That should be, I want it to cover the whole area. 17. Like so. And we can move it over a little bit. And that should, for the most part, cover everything. Let's take a look. Oh, yeah. We got everything covered. So now our character should be able to walk everywhere. So let's go ahead and take a look and see how that works. Okay. Before we test this out, there was one other step I forgot. So what we're going to need to do is go back to the AI character. And this roam event, we're going to need to add this at the end because we want the character to keep roaming and walking, keep roaming and walking. So we're going to drag off of here. We're going to type AI roam. And that should complete our code. Compile, save. Now you see right here we got 3 unsaved. Just go ahead and do a Control Shift S and that'll save everything. Now let's go back to our third person map. Okay, let's hit play. All right, we can see our character here. He's walking. Got to a point, he stopped. Now he's running. And then he stopped. Now he should play the next animation, which is death. So the character has died. We can die with him. See that? And then he's going to walk again. And then he's going to stop. He's going to run again. And he's just going to rinse and repeat the cycle. Okay, that covers today's lesson on functions and components. So now remember, with these functions and components, you can always like take the function, for instance, and just add it to the character. And then, you can pull all the functions from that component. So if you look in the event graph here, we got this function and it's got this function has this component has all the functions right here. And this we don't even need. We can actually delete that. But that will conclude today's lesson. Okay, and I want to say thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.